All right, my kings and queens, we are back for chapter 3. In chapter 2, Portia has got her interview at Metro General Hospital, so she's one step closer in her plan. I'm still working with this ginger ale. Very nice, very nice. All right, let's get into chapter 3. Doubts and fears started to fill my head like storm clouds when I pulled into the visitors' parking space outside of the hospital, and I was having second thoughts. The bad memories flashed back, and my first instinct was to back my car out and speed away. All of a sudden, I wasn't so sure I could work in a hospital environment after the traumatic experience I had with Nicholas. From that terrible day when we resigned ourselves to the inevitable, turned off the machines, and I had to walk out without him, I hated hospitals. All I could think about is the suffering of the patients and their families. I knew firsthand that there was so much sadness and misery inside the walls. I had since avoided them like the plague. Get it together, I scolded myself, making an effort to calm my nerves. I was determined to continue on my quest. I took a few moments to psych myself out since I was early for my interview. I tried to think about all the positive things that happened in hospitals, all the fortunate people who were healed and found relief there. I had to remind myself about the birth of my children in the hospital and all the miracles that take place there every day. 5 minutes later, I got out of the car with a renewed perspective and prayed I would find the miracle I was searching for in there also. Welcome to Metro General, Ms. Roberts, Mr. Patterson, the Director of Human Services said with a firm handshake. It's a pleasure to finally meet you in person. Thank you, sir. I'm glad to be here, I said as I followed close behind his heels to his palatial office. Inside, he took a seat behind his desk, and I sank deep in one of the plush chairs facing him. He smiled at me before he began to talk. Can I offer you some coffee or water? He asked politely. No, sir, I'm fine, thank you, I answered. Miss Roberts, I've read your resume, and we've talked extensively on the phone. I have no reservations about your ability to be an asset to this hospital and our staff. Are there any questions or concerns that you would like to address? He asked as he reared back in his chair with crossed legs and the fingertips of his hands touching. No, Mr. Patterson, I answered as self assured as I could while being swallowed up by the chair. You have been very thorough and informative in our conversations, and I feel confident that it would be a smooth transition for me. Well, in that case, I'd like to offer you the executive level administrator position in the financial benefits division of our human resources department. That's wonderful. Thank you, sir, I said with a smile spreading across my face. I'm very happy to accept this opportunity to work with you here at Metro General. You may find it to be a little less exciting here at the hospital than trading stocks on a regular basis, but I think you'll adapt well to our more laid back environment. That's exactly what I'm hoping for, I said. I like to get out of the pressure cooker and simmer for a while. Well, as I stated in the job description, your responsibilities will include advising our employees on their insurance needs and retirement accounts. That sounds unproblematic. I'm anxious to get started, I said, pleased about being one step closer to fulfilling my plan. Fantastic. Now let me show you to your office down the hall. With some effort, I dug my body out of the chair to accompany him. He had a long gait, so I lengthened my steps to keep up. We marched stride for stride with our heels clicking loud in unison against the marble floor. At the end of the hallway, Mr. Patterson opened the door to the office suite that had financial planning painted on it and handed me a set of keys. Inside, there was a young woman who looked around 25 years old, sitting at a desk in the outer office. Miss Roberts, this is Keisha Manning, your administrative assistant. She was nice looking and fashionably dressed, even though her style leaned towards ghetto fabulous. She had a light brown, blonde streaked weave, low cut blouse, and earrings that draped down to her shoulders. Nice to meet you, Miss Roberts, she said, standing up to give me a light hug. I couldn't help but smile when she towered above me in her 7-inch platform heels. It's a pleasure to meet you, Keisha, I responded and trailed Mr. Patterson to the office behind her desk. Keisha can get you oriented if you have any other questions or need anything. I'm right down the hallway, he said, stopping at the door. Thank you again for the opportunity, Mr. Patterson. You're most welcome, he said as he turned and walked out. I sat down in the huge burgundy chair at my desk and admired my lavish new office. It was amazing to me that I had come to this point in my mission. I swiveled around in my chair to face the window and took in the view of the parade of white coats walking across the hospital courtyard, and it looked promising. It turned out to be the perfect situation, more than I had dared to expect. Traffic through the office was always brisk, with the greater portion of the professional employees being concerned about their portfolios and anxious to make adjustments they hope will recover the losses in their 401 accounts. With my first month on the job, I had met nearly every medical person on staff. The majority of the doctors on staff were extremely assertive individuals who walked around the hospital like they were rock stars. I imagine you had to be that type of individual with a huge ego to take the lives of so many people in your hands. Some were condescending when they came into the office and talked to me like I was one of their nurses, and then there were those who were particularly personable. "Excuse me, Miss Roberts," a heavy voice said with a gentle knock on the door. I looked up over my reading glasses into the face of a very attractive man wearing a long white coat. He was just shy of 6 feet, pecan-colored skin with dark brown eyes. His head was bald, but he had a thick mustache and beard. I could see from his muscular arms and shoulders under that coat that he had worked out on a regular basis. "Your assistant isn't at her desk at the moment. Do I need to make an appointment to speak with you for a few moments?" "No, that's not necessary. I have some time. Come on in," I said, taking off my glasses to give him my full attention. "I'm Dr. Keith Whitman. I spoke with you on the phone a few weeks ago and requested that my insurance beneficiary be changed." "Yes, I remember that conversation. Please take a seat, Dr. Whitman. I have done that for you. All I need is your signature," I said, looking for the file on the computer. I found it, clicked print for a paper copy. "The only beneficiary will be Miriam Whitman, is that right?" "Yes," he answered, staring deep into my eyes, making me a little uncomfortable. "One more thing. I need to check the relationship of the beneficiary. Is Miriam your spouse?" I asked, glancing over the paperwork. "No, that's my mother. I'm single and available," he said with emphasis. Those were the magic words that turned him into my first prospect. "A handsome doctor, unattached. How does that happen?" I asked jokingly. "I'm very particular about the women I get involved with," he answered with all seriousness. "I guess you have to be discriminating as a successful man in your profession, Dr. Whitman." "Please call me Keith," he said, sitting back in the chair. "So what type of doctor are you, Keith?" I inquired. "I specialize in orthopedics and sports medicine." "That sounds interesting. You must work with a lot of athletes." "I do, but believe it or not, most of my patients are overweight with bad knees and feet." "That's surprising," I remarked with a smile. He sat there for another minute staring and smiling back at me, and I started to feel embarrassed. It was like he had superhuman powers that allowed him to see through my clothes. He wasn't shy about letting his eyes wander. "Is there something else that you need to address today?" I asked, attempted to finish up with the business at hand. "Yes, you can let me take you out for drinks." I looked down at the paperwork on my desk again and quickly scanned it with my eyes to find his date of birth. It was a drawback. He was only 33 years old, 12 years younger than me. "Are you sure you wouldn't prefer to take my assistant out? She's closer to your age." If I wanted to take her out, I would have asked her. Personally, I prefer a woman who's already got her act together. "Good answer, doctor," I said with a nod. "I'll think about it." "You do that, Miss Roberts," he said, standing up to leave. I could smell his fresh, clean scent as I escorted him to the door. "Please call me Portia," I said as he walked out. I was hesitant about getting close to Keith. He was young and cocky, but it might mean he would be less rigid to my request. Nevertheless, after that day, he came by every morning to say hello and flirt with me for a few minutes. I let him enjoy the chase for a while, and I must admit I enjoyed it myself. But from the change in Keisha's mood, I could tell she was feeling jealous of the attention he gave me. It was time to take our friendship outside of the office. "Thank God it's Friday," he said, peeking in my office door at the end of the day. "Amen to that," I said, shutting down my computer. "It's been a long week." "Well, why don't we get the weekend started right?" "How do you propose we do that?" "Let me take you out for drinks after you get done." "How about I meet you there?" I said, giving him a knowing look. From the rise in his eyebrows, I knew I had surprised him. He had been diligently asking me out for nearly a month, and I had consistently declined. "Now that's what I'm talking about," he said, nodding his head in agreement. "The Zanzibar around 7. "Okay, I'll see you there." I usually dressed in conservative professional attire at work, but I knew how to turn on the charm when I wanted to. I decided that for my serious mission, I needed to go home, change clothes, and bait my hook, as they say. I put on a form-fitting gold-colored dress that was sexy but still classy with shoes to match. I usually kept my hair back with combs or pinned up because I don't like it hanging in my face, but this evening I chose to let it hang down. I put on lip gloss instead of lipstick, thinking it would give me a more youthful glow. I stood in front of the full-length mirror and took a long look. I still looked good, even if I had to say so myself, but I hadn't been out with a younger man since the time I was a younger woman, and I felt a little self-conscious. I walked into the dimly lit bar with the air of confidence that I called on whenever I needed to command a situation. I did a swift search of the room and saw Keith sitting at a table near the window with a drink in front of him. Strategic move, I thought, remembering the long ago days of dating and the tactical game playing before I was married. He had chosen a spot where he could see whoever came in. I knew then he had been watching for me and had probably given me the once-over as I walked in. No problem, I said silently. I'm dealing with a player. Fortunately for me, he's somewhat young in the game. He stood up, behaving as a gentleman when I approached the table. Good evening, Miss Roberts, he said as he politely pulled a chair out for me to sit down. I moved toward the seat with him standing so close behind me I could feel his breath on my neck. Being that it's after hours, I insist that you call me Portia. He smiled, sat down across from me, and took a sip from his glass. What would you like to drink, Portia? He asked, licking his lips. An apple martini would be nice, I answered, and he grinned as if I had revealed some inner secret about myself with my drink selection. That was one of the things you lose as you get older, the false sense of knowing more than you actually do. He motioned for the waitress who just brought drinks to the next table. An apple martini for the lady and another one for me, he said, pointing at his glass. Sure thing, she answered. She looked like a cute college student, and she smiled at Keith as she took the order and then gave me a quick up and down critique before she walked away. It didn't bother me one bit. I was well past the point of petty jealousies that some women have when they're competing for the attention of a man. Waiting for my drink to come, I took the opportunity to get to know Keith a little better. Nearly all of the doctors working at the hospital are from out of town or out of the country. Are you from Nashville or someplace else? I asked. Someplace else. I'm from D.C., born and bred. I went to Howard for undergrad and medical school, he said proudly. And then he barked like a dog for an exclamation point that let me know he was an Omega. I hear you, I said with a nod. Another successful product from an HBCU. That's right, but this is all about you tonight. I want to hear something about you that I don't know, he said as the waitress set our drinks down on the table. Okay, I'm also an HBCU grad. I went to TSU for undergrad and my MBA. Right now I'm separated and I have a daughter who's a junior at Tennessee State. Separated, he said thoughtfully. I don't understand how a man with half a head on his shoulders would let you get away. It's complicated. Different things come between people and they grow apart. That's life. You seem like you're dealing with it. I mean, you're looking very good, he said with a sexy smile. I guess I'm proof that the way you feel doesn't have to show on your face, I said, returning his sexy smile. We had a few more drinks and talked some more before I told him. There comes a time when women need their beauty rest. Well, you definitely don't fit in that category, he said. Thanks, but I do get cranky without it, I said as I stood up to leave. When can I see you again, he asked. Whenever you want, just call me, I said, handing him one of my cards with my cell number and email address. Driving home, I felt energized. I had taken the second step, and it wouldn't be long before I would be under the euphoric sedation of propofol, and the intriguing mystery behind it would be revealed to me, along with pleasant dreams that I prayed included Nicholas. The complication of my plan and its shortcomings surfaced when my cell phone rang as soon as I closed the door behind me at home. I want to see you now, Keith said on the other end, using his deep, sexy voice. You've got to be kidding, I said to myself before I answered him. You've already seen me several times today. Be patient. Good things come to those who wait, I said in my alluring voice before I hung up. This was definitely going to be a challenge to get his mind to move away from the crotch. It seems these younger generations fudge first and then ask questions later. For the next week, every time Keith had a break in his schedule, he was in my office trying to get next to me. I don't think he was interested in anything serious. He just wanted to date, which was fine by me. But he was always talking about when we were going to hook up. It was not a good look and very unprofessional. I'm a firm believer in keeping work and private life separately. The Taste of Nashville Food Festival was coming up on the weekend, and so I invited him to go. It would be a chance to relax and talk without all the anxieties and Keisha listening in at the door. I wanted us to take our own cars and meet downtown, but he insisted that he was a gentleman and wanted me to pick me up at my house, so I gave him my address. I decided to tone down my outfit because this fish was already on the line and I might have to throw it back. I put on a sequin tank top, a pair of capri jeans, some flat sandals, and pulled my hair in a ponytail. Keith got there around 6 o'clock, pulling up in a big white Hummer. I came to the door with my crossover bag on my shoulders and my keys in hand, ready to walk out. He was dressed casual in jeans and a muscle t-shirt that fit tight around his biceps and hugged his six-pack. I had to admit he was enticing. The problem was I had a different agenda. It wasn't that I was against Malcolm X's philosophy of by any means necessary. I just needed to be assured that he could be persuaded to go that extra mile to get what he wanted. Nice. You're wearing those jeans, he said, opening the door and helping me into his Jeep. I'm not all business. I like to kick back and relax sometimes. He turned the ignition and Drake, leading a quartet of rappers in Forever, the explicit version, blasted through surround sound speakers. I clicked my seatbelt and prayed for consecutive green lights to cut the ride short. We parked in the parking lot of the courthouse and walked to the entrance of the festival where he bought us a big stack of tickets and handed them to me. So what kind of things do you like to do in your spare time? I asked him as we walked toward the vendors. I like to make love to a beautiful woman, he said, flashing me his perfect row of bright white teeth and flexing the muscles in his chest. That much I've assumed. Now, what else do you like to do? I asked, trying to keep the conversation on the light side. I like to go to movies. I spend a lot of time working out in the gym, and I love sports, especially football, he answered. I felt a shiver run through me. Just the word football could send me off the deep sometimes. But I composed myself, took a deep breath of all the mixed aromas on the street, and headed over to one of the vendors who was serving samples of barbecue ribs. I see you like to go for the meat, he said, watching me bite into the juicy pork. As a matter of fact, I like it all, I said, the meat, potatoes, the veggies, and the dessert. Now I need something to drink. He laughed and we walked a few more feet where they were serving wine. 10 tickets, he exclaimed when he saw the price of a glass. It better be good, he said while the bartender poured. You never told me what type of things you like to do in your spare time. Well, as you can see, I like to eat good food. I'm a music lover, so I like to go to concerts and listening to live music, but I really love to travel. That sounds nice. I'd like to take you away for a weekend, he said. Maybe in time. First, let's see if we enjoy each other's company enough to go out of town together, I said, smiling. We had a good time at the festival. Drinking all the wine and sampling all the food was relaxing, and we really got a chance to talk without any pressure. Keith told me about his family. He had two brothers, one older and one younger, and how his relationship with his father had been strained after he abandoned them when he left their mother for a younger woman. As he talked about it, I began to understand he's attracted to older women a little more. He said he had never been in any serious relationships in college, and now he preferred to concentrate on his career for a while. He got bonus points for that because I wasn't looking for anything deep, just access to a certain medication. Around 9:30, I was full, had a buzz from the wine and beer we'd sampled, and my feet were tired from walking on the concrete and asphalt in my no-arch support sandals. I grabbed onto his arm to hold myself up, and he asked, Are you ready to go in? The heat and all that alcohol is taking a toll, I said with a laugh. We made it back to the Jeep, and we drove to my house with the windows down. I leaned back against the headrest and closed my eyes, trying to imagine how I should broach the subject that I needed so much to discuss. But we were in my driveway before I even had any time to sober up. Keith opened my door, helped me out, and escorted me to the door. I got out my keys, unlocked the door, and when I walked up, he stepped in beside me. and behind me. Portia, I'd like to spend some time with you, he said. I've had a nice time and I don't want it to end yet. Well, have a seat, I told him in the living room, thinking it would give us some more time to talk. Would you like something to drink? Yeah, I'll have some beer and some dessert, he said, licking his lips again. He never stops, I thought, but I went into the kitchen and got a beer. I needed him relaxed and off guard while we talked. However, the truth of the matter was that he didn't want to talk any more. As soon as I sat down beside him, he grabbed the back of my ponytail and started kissing me deep down in my throat while his other hand was working nonstop with the skill of a trained doctor to get me out of my clothes. I hadn't anticipated things getting this far until I knew if he and I were on the same page in terms of my plan, but the cart had gotten in front of the horse. Keith was exploring and touching my body, and I was feeling turned on by him and the idea of being wanted by a younger man. His body was tight and muscular, and it wasn't the worst thing that could happen to me. It had been a long time since I had been with Raymond, and even though I had my issues, I now realized there were other needs that hadn't been attended to. My greatest concern at that moment was Keith seeing my body. I worked out and did some yoga in attempts to renew my mind, body, and spirit as I had been advised to after the tragedy, but I hadn't been in my 20s for a very long time. Suddenly, I felt insecure about the age difference between us. I stopped him. Why don't we take this to the bedroom and get more comfortable? Not to mention the free condoms they handed out at work were in my nightstand, and I didn't need anything else to worry about. Sex with Keith was a flashback of my 20s and early 30s. The sheer energy and desire without all the passion and love and satisfaction for satisfaction's sake and nothing else. Yet it felt good to get lost in the experience and excitement of a different man after 20 years. He was a generous lover, except it seemed like he had something to prove, not to me, but rather to himself. After the second round, he lay asleep beside me. I watched his body rise and fall with each breath and wondered if he was dreaming or as if his subconscious rested in the afterglow of his climax. I stirred around in the bed until the movement finally woke him up. You okay? He asked. Not really. I said, I have problems sleeping most of the time. Really? What's that about? It started about 3 years ago, and there's nothing that seems to help. Have you seen a doctor? Because I think I can help, he said, reaching for me again. I have, I said in a serious tone to put him off. Well, what was the diagnosis? They prescribed some sleep medications, but I was told that there is no medical explanation for it and I should try some diet changes or yoga. That sounds like good advice. I've heard that during the residency, a lot of the interns suffer with insomnia from being up so many hours at a time. That's true, he said. The body clock gets confused and it's very hard to rest. Well, how did you deal with it? I asked, glad that we were finally on subject. I had some friends who did some pretty radical things to get some sleep, but I would never do that. I've never taken drugs of any kind. I think it's a sign of weakness. Did you have any problem with your colleagues who weren't as strong as you? I asked. Yes, I did, he answered, slightly agitated. Once you take the Hippocratic Oath, there are things that you can't do or condone. I hear you, I said as I slid down under the covers and closed my eyes. This was a dead end and there was no way around it. I didn't blame Keith for his high principles. I even admired them and hoped he'd be able to sustain them throughout all this life has to offer. Once upon a time, I had steadfast principles of my own, but I know that this life can take you through some things that will have you compromising yourself in ways you never thought you would do just to survive. It's easy to be strong when you've never had to suffer. Pain is a game changer, and those of us who've had to endure it are forever trying to find ways to soothe it. In my life, I had experienced so many levels and intensity of pain, mental, physical, and emotional, like most people. But when a circumstance combines all three, there is a breaking point. I didn't think I was the type who would ever need a crutch. I had been standing on my own 2 feet without any help from anybody. But losing Nicholas pulled the rug out from under me, and now I have a disability. I don't like feeling like a victim or one of the walking wounded, but I hurt. The one thing that renews the body and mind is sleep, and I feel deprived because it's not working. If there's anything that can be done to get me out of this trap, I'm going to find it. And that's chapter 3. Chapter 3. Wow. That Keith. Mm. All right, kings and queens. I will see you later in our next segment with Chapter 4.